Whether you hydrate to live or live to hydrate, Liquid IV quenches your thirst faster than water alone. With 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, plus 8 vitamins and nutrients for everyday wellness, all in a single sugar-free stick. However you hydrate, grab your Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier sugar-free in bulk nationwide at Costco, or get 20% off your first order when you go to liquidiv.com and use code SCARY at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code SCARY at liquidiv.com.
Hi, I'm Steffany Strange. Want to hear something scary?
Hello there! As we venture forward, we wanted to offer you a dose of nostalgia from Something Scary for the next upcoming weeks. For those of you who have been following us for a while, you might recall these compilations we used to put together. Well, we decided to bring them back. We hope you enjoy these scary compilations.
Nola had arrived at Lake Crystal Summer Camp, eager to embark on a new adventure. As her parents bid her farewell, she unpacked her belongings, looking forward to the new experiences that had awaited her. As she went to put her clothes away, she yanked open the drawer. At the sight of a giant spider, she shrieked in horror. Quickly turning around, she heard laughter echoing behind her. It was her new bunkmate, Stacia. Stacia immediately picked up the spider to reveal it was just a toy. Her mischief knew no bounds. Playing practical jokes on fellow campers was her forte. Unable to contain her excitement, Nola burst out in laughter, thrilled to learn that her new bunkmate was someone she could have fun with. She secretly hoped that the two would develop a deep friendship, filled with loads of laughter and mischief, without the pranks being too scary, of course. Nola enjoyed swimming and sports, but her favorite part of camp was the evening campfire. Each night, they'd gather to tell spine-chilling tales, making s'mores and sharing urban legends. It was a perfect end of their jam-packed day of adventures. That was, until it was her turn to tell a story. She knew one that the others would love, but in the pit of her stomach was an irrational fear that if she were to speak the words out loud, somehow they might come true. Finally giving in to the camper's persistent urging, Nola shared a tale from her childhood known as La Mano Peluda, or the hairy hand. In the midst of the Spanish Inquisition, a man wrongfully accused of theft met an unfathomable fate. His hand was violently severed from his body, yet his spirit refused to rest. With a thirst for vengeance, he swore to rise from beyond the grave and unleash fury upon those who had wronged him. And so it came to pass that after his death, a ghastly sight emerged. His amputated hand, now covered in thick and dark hair, slithered through the shadows with malicious intent. Its insatiable desire for retribution led it to drag unsuspecting souls into the depths of hell, leaving behind only large, bloody fingerprints as a chilling reminder of its wrath. So beware the curse of the vengeful dead, for its grasp knows no bounds. As Nola recounted the legend, the other campers chuckled dismissively, mocking its authenticity, but she swore up and down it was true, even confessing that her fear of getting out of bed in the dead of night was due to her being afraid what might be underneath her bed, that the lurking hand was waiting to grab her. The mere thought of it just sent goosebumps all over her body. Cried out a younger camper in fright as a hand tapped on the shoulder. Of course, it was Stacia, taking advantage of the story to pull a prank. She giggled wickedly, saying to Nola, "So that's why you never sneak out with us after dark?" Her sinister grin hinted at some kind of scheme brewing in her mind. The campers all left and headed back to the cabins, leaving Nola alone by the fire, regretting that she shared not only the story, but her fears. In the dead of night, Nola was sound asleep when a sudden, ear-piercing noise jolted her out of bed. It was the fire alarm. She scanned the room and saw that Stacia was already gone. This is a trap, Nola thought. Just a prank to lure her out of bed, knowing she would be frightened. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her growing anger. She leaned over and grabbed her shoes next to her bed and ran out into the hallway. But there it was. The counselors conducted a head count. Their faces grew increasingly tense. It became evident that the only missing camper was Stacia. Nola casually brushed it off, suggesting that Stacia was likely hiding to avoid punishment. She was clearly the person who pulled the fire alarm. After the campers got all the clear, Nola, now exhausted and furious, returned to her room. As she flicked on the lights, she gasped before letting out a scream in terror that echoed throughout the building. Blood-soaked legs protruded from beneath Stacia's bed, revealing the lifeless remains of Nola's bunkmate. A terrifying realization gripped her. This was no ordinary prank. Something awful and tragic had happened. When the police arrived, they discovered thick, inky strands of hair on the fire alarm and large, bloody fingerprints. The same short, dark hairs and crimson prints covered Stacia's lifeless body, connecting the gruesome crime scenes. The truth became undeniable, at least to Nola and the other campers, that the legend of La Mano Peluda was real and was somehow manifested into life when told out loud. And now, it was there at Lake Crystal Camp, consuming innocent lives. The hairy hand had killed Stacia as a retaliation for her many pranks. Nola didn't know how many more deaths were to come, but she did know that it was just the beginning, and many more would fall victim to its need for vengeance.
Reiko flew into town for the funeral of her grandfather, her yeye. She was less than pleased. Not because she was mourning her yeye's passing, but because she had to leave school in the middle of the semester for the burial. She wasn't fond of the old man. Buddhist monks were praying when Reiko walked into the funeral, and everyone stared at her as she stood there wearing this bold red dress. She knew it wasn't the color of mourning, but she didn't care about superstition like the rest of them. Her cousin Kumo pulled her to the back of the temple. They hugged, then whispered with each other while others paid their respects. Although she was happy to see Kumo, Reiko admitted she didn't really like their yeye. He changed after the Hungry Ghost Festival 10 years ago. Something happened to him, and from then on, he was distant and cold and never seemed to care about them. He was just obsessed with all these crazy superstitions. Never point at the moon. Don't leave chopsticks vertical in a bowl. And, the most important of all, avoid the number 4 at all costs. Kumo could barely contain his laughter. That definitely sounded like their yeye. Kumo felt like their grandfather was obsessed with those things because he believed them, and he wanted them to be safe. They walked up to the body to see him one more time before he was cremated. Reiko took a good, long look at his face. Then she determined Kumo was wrong. There was something malicious about this man. It wasn't the yeye she'd known and loved. She was glad to never have to see his face again. Even so, Kumo felt they should follow the traditions and not do anything to cross superstition. They wouldn't want to disrespect the dead, particularly while his soul still wandered the earth for the next 7 days. Reiko shook her head. She felt all of those things were ridiculous. When you die, you're gone. That's it. But for her cousin's sake, they prayed, followed all traditions, and even donated money. And that's when Kumo told her she would surely be safe and protected. But Kumo also reminded her to knock on the door of her hotel room before she entered. That way, all of the ghosts would leave before she went into the room. Reiko rolled her eyes and headed for the hotel room. She quickly checked in and made her way to her room. She unlocked the door and then paused. Kumo's words were ringing in her ears. She knew it was dumb, but she knocked on the door, counted to 3, then entered. Reiko was in a dead sleep when she bolted upright, suddenly awake in a cold sweat. Directly above her hovered her dead yeye. with that cold stare on his face she had never wanted to see again. She rubbed her eyes, praying she was still asleep and trying to shake off that terrible nightmare before her. In an instant, his bony hands were around her neck, choking the air out of her lungs. His face contorted into an evil grin, and she knew this was no dream. Reiko clawed at the arms of this monstrous entity, managing to free herself. She ran towards the door, crying out, "You're not my Yeye! You can't be!" The apparition confirmed her suspicions. Her Yeye had broken the sacred rules one night during the Hungry Ghost Festival, allowing his body to be taken over. And just like he had before, now Reiko must suffer for disrespecting the rules. She flung open the door in terror and charged down the hallway. She hit the elevator button, but it wasn't coming. She darted for the emergency staircase. He got there first and barricaded the exit door shut. He grabbed Reiko by the ankles and dragged her down the hallway. Her nails dug into the carpet the entire way back to her room. She pleaded with him not to kill her. Tears poured down her face as she screamed, hoping the commotion would wake up someone, anyone. She didn't understand because she did what she was supposed to. She didn't break any superstitions. She even remembered to knock on the hotel door before entering. Of course, she hadn't looked at it. She'd been scrolling through TikTok on her phone. As her body was yanked towards the door, her heart dropped. She hadn't checked and had unwittingly broken the most indispensable rule of all, the unlucky number 4 on the sign. As a creature masquerading as her Yeye tried to drag her through the opening, she tried with all her might to resist, managing to grab hold of the door frame for a second before being whipped back with such force. Her wrist bones had snapped. As the rest of her body followed into the darkness, she sobbed, the painful irony of being a non-believer, and now the number 4 would be the last thing she would ever see. If only she had remembered to check before entering the hotel room from hell.
About a year ago, me and my family took a vacation to America. We stayed in this fancy upscale hotel. We checked in and got our key to our room on the 5th floor. Every night, I'd go down to the lobby after dinner and read a book or watch a movie with my headphones and have little chats with the receptionist, Tom. One night, I was in the lobby reading, and my mom texted me asking when I was going to come back up to the room. I looked at the time and quickly realized it was already 11 p.m., so I went back to my room and stayed up for a bit. After half an hour or so, I realized that I'd left my purse in the lobby. My dad and I kept trying to call Tom at reception via our hotel phone to see if he'd seen it or if it was still there. No answer. After about 10 minutes of trying, I finally decided to head back down. As I got into the elevator, I saw this shy-looking girl, my age, like 16 years old. She was wearing a really cute sweater with a triangle design on it. "I love your outfit," I said. No reply. "My name's Marissa. What's yours?" She just ignored me and hit the button for the 1st floor. I thought maybe I somehow offended her or shit. It hit me. She might have been deaf or mute or had special needs. Then the elevator proceeded to go up to the 10th floor. "That's odd," I said. I looked over at the girl, now looking down at the floor of the lift, quite nervously. I quickly apologized for whatever I'd done. Maybe I was offending her by repeatedly speaking to her, I don't know. But when I'm uncomfortable, I get kinda chatty. We arrived on the 10th floor. As the doors opened, the dark, empty hallway stared back at us. I assumed that she would hit the 1st floor button again, but she didn't. So I leaned over and pressed it myself. Just as I did that, she was stepping forward. She ran into my arm for a moment and stepped back. After I pulled my arm away, she stepped out of the elevator and into the hallway. Confused, I called out to her, "Where are you going? I thought you were going to the 1st floor." As soon as I said that, she bolted. I shrugged it off and hit the lobby button. I got to reception and asked Tom if he'd seen my purse. Luckily he had, and he handed it over to me. "You could have just called. I would have been happy to send someone up to bring it to you," Tom said. I actually did try calling from my room about half an hour ago, I explained, but I couldn't get through. I figured the line was busy or something. No, my line was definitely open. I'll have to look into that, Tom said. Before I turned around to head back to the elevator, I asked Tom if there were any deaf or special needs guests at the hotel. I told him about the girl in the elevator and how I might have scared or offended her. He told me he wasn't sure, and even if he did know, it wasn't information he should be sharing. I understood and headed to my room. The next day, me and my family were going out for the day for some tourist activities. I waved at Tom as we passed reception, and then he waved for me to come over. "That girl you mentioned last night, what did she look like?" he asked. "She was like 16, probably. She was wearing this really cute sweater with triangles." Tom looked incredibly worried. "She never returned to her room last night. Her parents called this morning looking for her." My heart sank. "That poor girl. She was seen pressing random buttons in the elevator on the CCTV," Tom continued. "That sounded familiar to me. I remembered seeing a video like that back in 2013, I think." Tom showed me the security footage, and sure enough, there she was, looking nervous, pressing random buttons, then me entering on the 5th floor, then her leaving on the 10th. That night, I Googled the elevator game, and I skimmed the rules. When you reach the 5th floor, a young woman may enter the elevator. Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. She is not what she seems. So that's why she was ignoring me. I was part of the game. Her game. But I wasn't a monster, I was just a person, right? Am I not what I seem? Am I dangerous? It's been almost a year since that day, and she still hasn't been found. They say if you play the elevator game successfully, you can travel to an alternate dimension on the 10th floor. But if you don't follow the rules exactly, you might get stuck there forever. And every now and then, I wonder if my being there interfered with her ritual somehow. I wonder if I'm the reason she's stuck.
Thanks so much for listening. Like and share if this video gave you the chills. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. See you next time.